Hi again, everyone. So excited to be here again with you for our Librarians on the Couch session. And this afternoon, I have a really lovely special guest, someone I actually met recently over at IFLA, the International Federation of Libraries Associations World Library Congress in Rotterdam. So she's an Australian and I'm an Australian, but that's where we got to meet. Funny, right? Anyway, let's welcome Emily Wilson, who is the Regional Engagement Manager for ALIA. Emily, come on down. Fantastic to have you with us.
Thank you.
Emily,
Hi, Paula. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you for joining us. And it's just lovely to have you here with us in our first couple of filmings for Librarians on the Couch. It's a bit exciting for us.
It's a great concept.
Yeah, I must say, it's our lovely General Manager, Chaya Patel. It was her idea to have this kind of, fun chat on the couch about stuff to do with libraries. And, we happen to
I
like
love
talking about
libraries, exactly.
Snap, absolutely. And what fun we had in Rotterdam. And it was, I have to say, when people ask me how was it, because it was the first time I'd been to IFLA,
Yep.
I have to say I found it a bit overwhelming in parts, 3,500 people there. I mean, it's not as overwhelming as I'm sure the American Library Association conference is, which has like 35,000 people attend or something, but 3,000 odd people. It's a big program, so I actually really loved it that we got to meet each other there.
It was fantastic. And at that flash mob as well in the central station.
Wasn't that fantastic? Yep. Why don't you tell us about that?
So
because, it was fun.
We all got to read a book, a children's picture book in our language from our country. So I read Possum Magic and walk around the station for 10 minutes reading out loud. And there were a few hundred librarians doing this.
It was beautiful, wasn't it?
And that's to encourage reading out loud to children.
Yeah, and I had Bronwyn Bancroft's 1, 2, 3, so an Indigenous picture book. And we were so proud because we all brought a picture book from our own country because, of course, there's people from all over the world at IFLA. And also for the section that I sit on the standing committee for reading and literacy for IFLA, and in our group, what we did at the end of our session was the books that we took, we actually had a book swap. Yeah. So people got to swap their book with someone else from another place in the world, which was really fun.
I loved it, and I loved explaining what a lamington was to people from overseas, and they're like, "It's stale sponge cake." I don't understand. They go, "But you dip it in chocolate."
Yeah, and have coconut on the outside. The bits that drop all over your shirt.
No, you Aussies are strange. And I left Possum Magic in one of the little free libraries.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, just in a community suburb in Rotterdam.
Love that.
So someone will pick that out.
Good on you, Emily. And of course, at the Rotterdam Centraal train station, they have a fabulous library up on the second floor. I don't know if you got to go to it.
No, I missed that one.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. I went up to it because I was meeting different people that were coming in and going out on trains during that time. And they have a bar with fabulous croissants and pastries and a little lovely library collection with self-checkout and, free Wi-Fi and glass windows so you can look down into that central part of the station where we did the flash mob. And so I could see who I was looking for, even if they didn't know to come up to the library, I could see them go and grab them, ring them or whatever. But yeah, beautiful. And, what was your takeaway from IFLA? Did you enjoy it? How was it for you?
IFLA's great, and I recommend any librarian that gets opportunity to go to an IFLA one day. It's a great way to meet people from around the world.
Isn't it just?
It's the connections.
Yes.
I loved going to the presentations of Library Design Awards or Marketing Awards because the format was fantastic, and you could see the short video about the nominees and have that Q&A with them. And so I learnt about great marketing campaigns, for really small concepts, but just that was really successful and had the impact that they wanted. And seeing the beautiful libraries in the Library of the Year Awards.
Oh yeah, it was very special, wasn't it? And of course, ALIA has been such an advocate of library design, and I had the good fortune of being on the team who conceptualised the Australian Library Design Awards way back when. So I have loved being involved with that, and of course we're heading into a new session of the Design Awards again, and us judges have been getting ready for that because of course they've just opened again, haven't they? The nominations, I think in September. When do they close? Do you
Oh,
remember just
don't
off the
ask
top of
me
your head?
about
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Okay, check ALIA's website
Yes.
at alia.org.au
Always.
to check when the Design Awards nominations close. I know it's not immediate, but it will be coming up before the end of the year because I know we're going into our judging process
Yes.
early next year. But don't quote me. Please check the website. But it
Good
is
librarian.
absolutely always check your
Point them to
sources. Too
information.
right.
Yep.
Too right. But it's been a fantastic journey with the Library Design Awards. You know, we feel really, when I say we, the judges, the current cohort of judges, but also the people who've been involved. People like Jenny Musty and Jennifer Kahn were my colleagues in Victoria that sat with Sue McKerricker when she was the CEO of ALIA and conceptualised this wonderful idea. And Sue was just so behind it, and really, Rayco was the first sponsor that came on board too,
Brilliant.
funnily enough, before I was associated with Rayco in terms of my work with them. But I've always been very much a very happy customer and a great ambassador for Rayco, if you like, because we've done so many great projects together. And, you know, I thought at the time there was something missing. You know, at the time I was working for the City of Melbourne, and we just finished the library at the Dock, which at the time was a library that was out of the box. It was the first public library makerspace in the country. It was a beautiful new concept, the way it was built with CLT on top of the water, so it had to be light and strong. So that's cross-laminated timber. So it's a timber and glass box, really.
Oh, it's a beautiful space.
It's gorgeous. And what was so clever about it, and this is City of Melbourne innovation for you and sustainability, is that it came over from the Nordic countries in 54 containers, all like a Meccano set, numbered with every piece ready to go, right? And literally that library was put together with hand tools, screwing it all together, other than when the big staircase came in with a crane. And I know this wasn't necessarily what we're going to talk about today, but interestingly, it was built. I think it was a record number of days. I think it might have been 8 months from beginning to end that library was built. And for a library that size, 3 levels, you know, it's quite an extraordinary piece of architecture. And had so much nuance to it, including co-designed shelving that we worked on with Rayco to design a lot of that shelving as new concept shelving. And, you know, that was finished in 8 months, and also very minimal OHS issues, which was the really big bonus on building like that. Now, if we could have used, when I say we, City of Melbourne, so the royal we, when I was still City of Melbourne, if we could have used Australian material, we would have, but there was no CLT production of that volume here at the time. So, you know, it was the first 6-star green library in Australia, you know. So on the back of that, we thought, well, yeah, you know, we can enter into awards that are, you know, at that time the Systemic Public Library of the Year Award, I think might have started around that time, just before or just after. Dock 1 over in Orthos was being built because beautiful Marie Ostergaard came to visit, and she was so gracious. She said to me, "Oh, I'm going to have to go home and rename the library." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, this is Dock 1 now." It was so gracious of her. I mean, you know, ours is like that big compared to their amazing project. But it has been a really important part of that landscape of acknowledging how beautiful our libraries are in this country, you know, and the seriousness.
Well, and celebrating that as well.
And the serious celebration of that, you know, really highlighting the effort that people are going to create beautiful spaces.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I loved about IFLA, to get back to that, was you could celebrate these spaces and good design, but also all the other aspects of what a library needs to offer. So having things like the marketing awards to market programs, and to talk to people about collections and service delivery. So we've got to remember that you might not have the most beautiful library because your budget doesn't allow, but you can still have such a strong, special library.
And you're right about the range of programs that were highlighted. Some of them were quite little projects in the scheme of things. And I know in the Green Library Awards, some of them were just teeny little initiatives, but they were really beautiful. They were beautiful in their design, in their execution, and in the sort of concept that they had around what can we do that meets a community need for our community. And really inspiring.
It's that innovation. We're running the SA Library Information Awards for the first time ever. And so we've just shortlisted, and I think that's gone on to the ALIA website today.
Oh, exciting.
But one of the nominees is that, like, new to a library, small public library, but just the amount of things that can be implemented for
Yes.
greening practices
Fantastic.
on a small scale that can really benefit the
Love
community.
that. And as
Yep.
we know, sustainability now is such an imperative for us as a world, but as a nation, and in any of our roles, that anything we can do to actually contribute to slowing down any of the impact of climate change and really focusing in on those wonderful opportunities we have in libraries, whether that's through the way we procure our furniture,
Yep.
making sure that's sustainable. And of course, I'll just put in a plug there saying that Rayco's has that. It's been a really, really important part of Rayco as a business to really invest heavily in the R&D around sustainability and putting their brand and their money where their mouth is around that. And of course, with BioGuard 80, which we've mentioned before in one of our previous discussions, the development of that has been in the making for a number of years. It's a lot of investment that companies like Rayco, who are serious about this, they put that in on behalf of our industry and our sector. It's working with librarians to help solve some of those problems. And, that brings me to the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and how, as an ecosystem in the library sector, how important it is that we lean in together and work together to help achieve those goals. And I know ALIA has been a great, advocate of that work around the SDGs. So tell us a little bit about how that's going and where that's at, if you know at the moment. I know Jane Cowell has been such a champion.
Yes, I mean,
as the new board chair.
we've got some great work happening there and a lot of work through our ALIA groups as well. And we've got the Greening Libraries Conference coming up.
Yes, of course.
So I think we should give
we're
that
speaking at that.
Yeah, that's right. So we should probably plug the Greening Libraries
Yes.
Conference. Again, you can register now. Jump onto
Yes.
the ALIA website, and that will be November 22nd.
Yes, it is.
And online. So
Fantastic.
anyone can attend.
Yeah, beautiful.
And you can hear about the work that's happening all around Australia.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for telling us about that. And if perchance you're listening in past that date right at the moment, I'm sure that there'll be a webinar or a recording.
Yeah, I think you can register and then you'll have access for a few months afterwards.
Fantastic.
So check it out,
Yeah,
and
great.
that'll have all the terms and conditions
Beautiful.
on there.
And speaking of that, let's segue into your role, Emily, because this is a relatively new role for ALIA, the Regional Engagement Manager for right around the country. So based in South Australia, but you get to travel a fair bit by the sounds of it.
That's right.
Which it's a two-edged sword. We always think, travelling for work's really glamorous, but we were just sharing the woes of not having your own hairdryer when you go on the road.
Exactly.
Which could be a bit
So
problematic.
I'm sure I look very stylish from my hotel blow dryer today.
Absolutely. But, aside from that, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to for the last few months and in the role generally, Emily.
Well, so yes, it's a new role, and it's that grassroots role because the majority of my colleagues are Canberra-based, and we really want somebody, which is me, to get out and visit libraries and people who work in libraries, people who are studying to work in libraries, and make them feel part of ALIA, which if you're an ALIA member, you are ALIA. And how can you be involved? And that could be through joining a regional group, joining a special interest group, coming to an event, jumping online to one of our online events, and just making sure people don't think that ALIA is Canberra, the national office, and really it's that everyone is ALIA.
Absolutely.
And we can all contribute.
And contribute, but also get so much from the membership as well.
Well, that's what we'd love to see, and to feel part of something and not alone, because that together we're stronger
big challenges
thing is really important.
and big challenges that we're facing in libraries at the moment. We won't go into the specificity of those issues, but to say that our ALIA is our advocate and our support, peak body in Australia for librarians to be able to tap into that support and information and policy advice too, which is just brilliant. Speaking of which, the other thing, a way that you can get involved, of course, and that's my great pleasure, has been involved not just as a judge of the Library Awards and helping getting those established way back when, but also as a board member. So we were just saying before, I noticed Emily's lovely little orange, red ALIA pin. Very stylish with your outfit.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I like to colour match.
Oh my God, I haven't got my pin on. And I was showing off totally because I got my gold pin from being on the board, so I was that was totally showing off. Sorry about that.
No, that's good.
But, you know.
But that's what I say to people who are looking to be involved with ALIA, and you can start off with being in a committee, and you can be involved at that strategic level and become a board member.
And it was a great pleasure to me to be involved, I have to say. 2 years that really meant a lot to me as a library professional.
Yeah.
And the people that I met on that journey and the library board members at the time, it was just such a great leadership development process for me, but also a wonderful way of contributing to my profession. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. And we got lots of important things done. You know, one of the things, speaking of decentralising ALIA a bit, was ALIA House as a capital piece of investment for ALIA as a organisation was actually getting to the point of draining the organisation financially, which is not sustainable, you know. So our board was the board that actually made that decision to sell ALIA House, and that was a really big thing for the organisation at the time. It might sound like a little thing to people, but ALIA House, when it was established more than 20 years ago, I think, I don't know the exact date, I can't remember.
Bit longer.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, you're right. It would be. It'd be more like 40 years ago. Yeah, you're right. It would be. I can't remember how long, but a long.
There's a lovely history of ALIA House on the website as well.
Yes, and I apologise that I haven't got all that in the top of my head right now. But what I want to say is that at the time, it was a really important thing to get that infrastructure and to feel that sense of national representation, that it was in Canberra where all the decision makers were, and
near the embassy.
You know,
exactly.
you know, so you could go and advocate and talk to people at a time when you had to be there. We didn't have Zoom. We hardly even had mobile phones back then. You know, like seriously.
Yeah,
I know
true.
you weren't even born then, but you know, that's how it was. So having it in Canberra was really important. But as we know, I think one of the gifts that COVID gave us, and it was a gift. There wasn't many, but this was a gift. Was that we all got a bit better at using technology, and you know, we got more used to the idea that you can have a really rich experience online. It doesn't take away the benefit or need or joy of meeting people in person, as we know. You know, going to conferences is part of that joy, isn't it? You know, networking, meeting your colleagues.
You can do professional development online.
Correct.
But that networking is such a wonderful thing.
Yeah, so you can do the professional development or the meeting or the things that were inconvenient to get to, or indeed financially, you know, not able to be done very often for many people. So it's actually democratized.
We can bring the ideas and the concepts in a much fairer way. And I'm seeing conference attendance from people across the organisations now, where it used to just be library leaders that could go. And now staff can get involved and have those learnings,
which is so important because these are the future leaders in our organisations. And if you're kept out of that conversation, out of that opportunity to meet people who might potentially be your mentors as well, then that's really missing the point, isn't it? So what is your day like? What does your week look like? What does a week in the life of Emily look like?
Well, today's been Melbourne, obviously. Before I came to see you and look around the Reiko warehouse, I was at the Athenaeum Library on Collins Street because I needed a workspace.
Oh, lovely.
And usually it's a subscription library, but they were very, very generous and allowed me to come to a couple of my Zoom meetings, and I set up in their archives room.
Oh, nice.
That's a real Melbourne
It is a real Melbourne institution, absolutely.
It's beautiful.
It's really gorgeous, and you know, I have to say, if you haven't been to the Athenaeum, I do encourage you to visit that when you're in Melbourne. Of course, we've got some beautiful libraries in the city of Melbourne. You know, State Library Victoria is a breathtaking library, is it not?
Isn't
you know,
it?
I feel very privileged to have worked there for 8 years, and again, being part of that development of it being a people's library. You know, it was very much an academic library prior to that, even though it wasn't called an academic library. It was predominantly researchers using it. And we successfully, over time, and with great leadership at various times, particularly from Anne-Marie Schwertlich, who went on to become our national librarian when she left the State Library, set in motion a blueprint that is what the State Library's now become, which is a library for the people. And it was a great pleasure to be involved in that development of the family and children's programs, for example, and the more inclusive and interesting programmings they're doing around, you know, small business development and entrepreneurial support and so on. You know, it's been terrific. And of course, City of Melbourne has their new QV library about to open.
Yes, I did stroll past yesterday.
We were so
to have a look.
hoping that we were going to have our end of year celebration there,
Oh,
but
wow.
funnily
It
enough, we were planning for it on the
Looked
very
a lot more
eve.
built than I was
Yes,
expecting. I thought it
yeah.
might still be some
No,
hole in the ground type
no,
thing. but
it's
yeah,
about to get
it's-
rock and roll.
it's
It's
real.
about to go
I'll have to
live.
come back to Melbourne. and
Yeah,
have a
you
look.
will.
Yep.
Exactly. And there's a rooftop garden too. So I
Perfect.
suppose I'm imagining that'll be gorgeous. It is a Rako library, so we're very excited about that. And of course, City of Melbourne's done that fabulous job with all the pop-up libraries. I don't know if you've got to visit those, but the one
I saw the one in Federation Square.
at Children's Library in Fed Square, absolutely gorgeous, just beautiful, great concept. And of course, Kevin Henner, our consultant who works with us on library design, he's an independent consultant, but he's a really closely identifies with Rako and recommends Rako because he does. He's very aligned with our values as well, and he was the not so much the mastermind, but he worked very closely with the City of Melbourne library leaders to be able to create those pop-ups, and they were just fantastic.
And
Good
there's a lot
fun.
of great concepts that are transferable to libraries that might not have the budget to buy
Exactly.
all new things.
Yes,
But
exactly.
yeah, I think
you
I've
could
seen
do a
some of the
takeaway.
Kevin Henner,
Yes,
takeaways. Just
you can do a little
use
takeaway.
these principles,
Yes.
and it can really improve the visitor experience in the
Exactly.
libraries.
And it might be just as little as using, Perspex bookends instead of your old metal ones and just updating those. All of a sudden you've got an extra face out book on the end of each
the face out
shelf,
exactly.
Face out's so important as
Yep.
we know, it's a funny thing. We often quote the don't judge the book by its cover. But interestingly enough, one of the little things I learnt when I was working, not that I worked in the publishing sector, but I had a lot to do with the publishing sector, particularly when I was at the State Library Victoria, is how much money is spent on developing a book jacket. The marketing
Oh, of course.
and the look and the feel and all that stuff.
Yep. And then you see the spine and it's covered in spine labels.
Hello,
And it's
right?
Yep.
So I remember one of the programs we did at the State Library was we brought out Rachel Van Riel from the UK, from the reading Opening the Book. It's a reading promotion organisation called Opening the Book. And she was doing training in, how do you actually use this wonderful resource of these book jackets in display rather than putting all the snowflakes and the fruit and all the other stuff that we always used to do, is using those book jackets and arranging them in such ways that they were the promotional thing in themselves, which led us into the concept of using bay ends and having face out display on bay ends. And
it catches the
that
eye.
practice,
Exactly.
of face out display.
Yep.
And
But
I don't know if
book displays are so much fun.
Oh.
When I was at Ivanhoe Library yesterday,
Oh.
and they had a Halloween display,
oh,
but
fantastic.
they had decorated as well, which was wrapping toilet paper around a post.
We can't help ourselves. Children's librarians.
I think it was to look like a mummy, maybe,
Yes.
but it had some goggly eyes on
I
there.
love
and
it.
I thought,
Yeah. But I think the point, and I think you're right, we haven't thrown the baby out with the bathwater. We've still got all that fun aspect of the library displays. But I think people are much more aware. We've rolled out a whole training program right across Australia on reader development and promotion of reading by looking at the way that we were displaying books and using that wonderful resource of Face Out. I don't know if you know this stat, but the stats that we've been monitoring with our public library partners are a book gets borrowed 7 times more if it's face out displayed.
Great.
7 times
Libraries,
more.
the data is so good.
Is
I think
it?
We need
We're
to
great at the
capture-
numbers,
We
yeah.
need to capture more of the numbers.
Yep.
Sometimes we're really good at stories.
Yes.
But
Well, I think that actually interesting you say that, because I think that in the old days we were good at the data and not so good at the stories. I think what we've done with all good change comes the big pendulum swing, right? So we went from just counting people through the door and just counting book loans and just counting those sort of quantitative data sets
fair.
to, right, let's tell a story, because libraries change lives. We want to hear about how they change lives. So we sort of went, right, we still collect all that, but we don't talk about it as much. And I think when you get the full story is when you put those two things together.
Of course.
And that becomes a really powerful advocacy story around, some of the reports that have been done over the years, dollars and cents is, what sort of return for the dollar, every dollar that's spent, what are you getting back?
The educational outcomes.
Correct. That sort of thing. So I think that, all of this together, and I know that the Public Libraries Victoria is certainly getting better at that sort of combining
and the
those
National
data
Libraries
sets.
Transform as well, which
Correct.
you can check out the website for that, which is a campaign borrowed from America.
beautiful.
Yeah,
And of
it's
course,
lovely.
you know, the Americans are very good at this stuff. They seem to have a lot of, I suppose that's a numbers game too. You know, we met, you know, Sky Patrick, of course, at the Public Libraries Victoria conference earlier this year.
Yep.
And she runs the LA County, so not just Los Angeles, the city, but the county of Los Angeles
Yeah, wow.
Public Library
Yep.
Service. 2,500 staff, Emily.
Yes.
Like, that's a big job, right? And the scale of what she was talking about, we were all just, you know, gobsmacked. So you got those big campaigns that they can do because you have got the sort of, I guess it's the same as if you're in the creative industry and you're a musician, you sell in America, you're going to be successful even if one person in one suburb buys your CD. To be successful in Australia, it has to be one person in every single street if you're going to be successful in terms of, you know, monetary and fame and fortune sort of thing. So coming back to that, you know, how are the numbers at ALIA? You know, where are you seeing your majority of your membership from? Where are you looking to develop? If you have got a development strategy, I'm sure you have around where ALIA is going. Is there sort of some dot points you want to share with us about that? If you can.
No.
No, okay. Okay, so we're going to cut that bit out, Adam.
Sorry.
I know I made an agreement with Emily that if I said anything that she didn't want to answer, we just cut it. So you'll cut that bit out. All right, so I'll ask a different question.
Cool.
Can I ask, so I was talking about ALIA, I was talking about numbers, I was talking about the story. Okay, so why don't we go back to, so tell us about the story of ALIA, as in where's ALIA, what are your current priorities? Okay, so they're published. Can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'll ask
okay,
again.
sure.
I just was checking first.
Got it. Thank you.
So, you know, speaking of numbers and stories, Emily, you know, where's ALIA at now, and what are your sort of dot points that you're working on, you know, going forward now?
I think it's always about, making members feel engaged and a lot about making everyone that works in the library and information profession see themselves as part of ALIA, because to support a library service, it's not just librarians or library technicians. You've got people who are there for marketing, and you've got people that are there for archival management and digital preservation and like myriad things within libraries. They can all be ALIA members. And so it's that you don't have to be a librarian. You just have to want libraries to succeed and care about libraries. And that.
And really, I love that ALIA really has become, as you say, that peak body that supports libraries and everyone who works within it.
And
as
it's
a
that
peak
acknowledgement
body.
that you need myriad skill sets for a successful library.
Absolutely. And I have to say, as someone who came into public libraries, not being a qualified librarian initially, I was an educator first, then went into community development, and then into school libraries, and then public libraries. And it was in public libraries I found my spiritual home. You know, I knew I'd arrived when I started as a children's librarian at Collingwood Library in a church. Funnily enough, I had a religious experience there.
Stories of what brought you to libraries and when did you know you were going to make a career from this?
When I walked into that beautiful old church in Collingwood that's now a library and has been for a long time.
I think I'm going to have to visit that.
Oh, it's so sweet. It's beautiful, and it's old school, but it's beautiful. And I just thought, I've come home. It was so powerful for me, and it was just lovely that even though the organisation really wanted me to get going with my career and go into a more senior role, so I went into managing the development of the then Carlton Library in Rathdown Street, which I loved. Absolutely loved doing that. It's a beautiful library. I was very proud of that. We won the Royal Australian Architects Award for the best public library renovation and extension.
Oh, great! Because I think I took my kids in a few years ago, just pre-COVID, and
beautiful.
You can see a library's a good
gorgeous.
space
it's
where
20 years later, right?
the children can run in and just feel at home.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So that for me, you know, and managing the 10 children's librarians, because we had the Yarra Melbourne Regional Library Corporation back then, so it was City of Yarra and Melbourne together. So I had 10 children's librarians that I was looking after there. But I remember when Barb Horn, who was my first CEO, said to me, you know, Paula, you've got the hallmarks to go to the table, you know. And I said, Bob, but I love being a children's librarian, Barb. Like, I get to spend time with these beautiful kids and these families, and I I'm affecting their lives. And she said, well, that's great. And if that's all you want to do, more power to you. That's really wonderful. And she was an ex-children's librarian, then a CEO of the organisation. So wonderful career journey. And she said, but if you come up to the management table, you will get to influence the sector. You will get to make sure you advocate for children's librarians to have enough resources, to have the next...
And showcase all that quality
Correct.
work.
And
you know it and the families know it, but do the funders know it?
Correct. And the strategy behind that and the funding and the partnerships. And so, that's what I did. I took that step. Right. And but coming back to the story, I remember years later when I was working at State Library Victoria, one of my colleagues' teenage sons was there, and she introduced me to him. And he's, 6'4" or something. He was about 16. And he said to me, I remember you. And I'm looking at him thinking, I don't remember you, but thank you. And he said, you were my children's librarian at Collingwood Library. And I said, what?
That's so
And he
sweet.
said, my dad used to take me to story times. I still have all the song sheets and the activities in my treasure box that my dad has kept for me because we loved your story times so much.
Parenting.
Oh my
that's
God!
Nice.
Good parenting, but also I've got goosebumps remembering.
That's right.
What a joy! I just felt really excited about that, around that impact that you can have in your role as a librarian. It's a really beautiful thing. So, Emily, we love ALIA. We love the fact that RACO has got that, mutual support mechanism in our organisations as well. We know that we've got a professional distance as well. That's all part of the deal. But I have to say, we love what you do. We love being a supporter of ALIA, and
and that's it as well, because ALIA, like I said, everyone is part of what a library is, and that includes the industry partners.
Absolutely.
Like RACO.
And I often talk about it as an ecosystem, that we're part of an ecosystem, and I always have my whole career. And I always advocate to people who work in libraries, to understand that partnership that is part of working with the vendors, no matter if it's RACO or others. It's such an important part of the strength of the sector, and the future of the sector as well. Emily, it's been so lovely to have you with us. The time has flown. Like we could talk for hours, right? We've got a lot going on that we could cover.
For having a wine.
Indeed, or a as I had a porn star martini, as I recall, on the SS Rotterdam.
Yes. Thank you.
Courtesy of my son's recommendation, which was kind of a bit funny, right? Anyway, Emily, lovely to have you with us. Thank you so much. It's been a joy, and we look forward to catching up again soon. Thank you again. And did I say we've both got our ALIA pins on? Yeah. Just reminding everyone, you can get one too. Thank you. Take care.